This is America in the Morning from Westwood One. Good morning, I'm John Trout. It's Thursday, December 5th, 2024. Here's what's coming up on America in the Morning.
Shots were fired outside a hotel in Midtown Manhattan.
A brazen, targeted attack.
I'm Ed Donahue.
The Supreme Court seems likely to uphold Tennessee's ban on medical treatments for transgender minors. Sagar Meghani, Washington.
A unified Republican Congress may be divided on President-elect Donald Trump's first 30-day goals. I'm Pamela Furr.
The Justice Department finds that Memphis Police used excessive force in the beating death of Tyre Nichols. I'm Shelley Adler.
The major averages all open at fresh record highs this morning. The Dow above 45,000 for the very first time. I'm Jessica Ettinger.
Rescuers are contemplating the safest way to search for a woman who apparently fell into a sinkhole. I'm Haya Panjwani.
All ahead on America in the Morning. The CEO of the nation's largest health insurer gunned down in New York City in what police believe was a targeted killing. Correspondent Ed Donahue has details.
At this time, every indication is that this was a premeditated, pre-planned, targeted attack.
Shots were fired outside a hotel in Midtown Manhattan. Police Commissioner Jessica Tisch.
50-year-old Brian Thompson, the CEO of United Healthcare, was shot and killed in what appears, at this early stage of our investigation, to be a brazen, targeted attack. This does not appear to be a random act of violence.
The CEO of United Healthcare was shot and killed.
The victim was in New York City to speak at an investor conference. It appears the suspect was lying in wait for several minutes. And as the victim was walking to the conference hotel, the suspect approached from behind and fired several rounds.
Thompson died at a nearby hospital. Tisch says the suspect got away first on foot and later on an e-bike. He was last seen in Central Park.
The full investigative efforts of the New York City Police Department are well underway, and we will not rest until we identify and apprehend the shooter in this case. Right now, we are asking the public for your help. If you have any information about this case, call Crime Stoppers. We have increased the reward in this case to $10,000.
Thompson had worked at United Healthcare for 20 years, the last 3 as CEO. I'm Ed Donahue.
Fox Business is reporting that multiple senior executives of United Healthcare have been under investigation by the Department of Justice after being accused of insider trading and fraud, and into whether the nation's largest insurer was unfairly restricting competitors and running a monopoly. They report that it's not clear if the murdered CEO, Brian Thompson, was part of that investigation. NBC News is reporting that Thompson's wife said that police told her the attack on her husband was planned and that he had been receiving threats prior to the attack. The U.S. Supreme Court appears likely to stand Tennessee's ban on gender-affirming medical care for transgender minors. Washington correspondent Sagar Meghani reports.
So to the trans activists over there claiming this is all about the rights of children, I say again, yes, you're right, it is. They have a right to be protected from you. Children have a right to be protected from all of those people over there who want to harm them and damage them and destroy them. And they will be.
The Supreme Court seems likely to uphold Tennessee's ban on medical treatments for transgender minors. The issue is whether the law violates the Constitution's Equal Protection Clause, since the statute bans puberty blockers and hormone treatments for those minors, but allows them to be used for other purposes. Chief Justice John Roberts says the Constitution leaves the question of regulating medical procedures to lawmakers.
My understanding is that the Constitution leaves that question to the people's representatives rather than to 9 people, none of whom is a doctor.
And Justice Brett Kavanaugh joined other conservatives in saying while there are strong arguments on each side,
why isn't it best to leave it to the democratic process?
The court's liberals disagreed.
When you're 1% of the population or less, very hard to see how the democratic process is going to protect you.
Well, Your Honor,
you blacks were a much larger part of the population, and it didn't protect them. It didn't protect women for a whole centuries.
Justice Sonia Sotomayor.
And the question of how many minors have to have their bodies irreparably harmed for unproven benefits is one that is best left.
I'm sorry, Counselor. Every medical treatment has a risk. Even taking aspirin. There is always going to be a percentage of the population under any medical treatment that's going to suffer a harm.
The Biden administration argues a ruling in favor of Tennessee could be used to justify nationwide restrictions on transgender care for minors. Sagar Meghani, Washington.
Today's top stories are brought to you by Sleep Number. And now, during our Cyber Week sale, save 20% on most Sleep Number smart beds, plus free home delivery with any base. Limited time. To find a store near you, visit sleepnumber.com. GOP disagreement on Trump's legislative agenda. That when America in the Morning continues after these messages. This is America in the Morning. Snow impacting the Northeast, rain for the South. Here's AccuWeather.com meteorologist LaTroy Thornton with the forecast.
A storm that brought rain and even some downpours to parts of the South on Wednesday will continue to douse some parts of the region today, but as the disturbance is absorbed by a cold front tracking southward, precipitation will tend to follow southward through today, becoming focused more and more over the Gulf of Mexico rather than over land. However, there can still be some showers and even thunderstorms at times today, most likely within a narrow zone from southern Alabama to southeastern Louisiana. A somewhat reduced potential for showers and especially downpours extends eastward through the Florida Panhandle and westward to at least the lower Rio Grande Valley of Texas. However, afternoon showers may try to develop north of there along much of the Texas-Mexico border zone. In terms of areas where precipitation will fall as snow instead, an energetic Alberta clipper will continue tracking through the eastern U.S. today. Aside from producing the cold front that will sweep those showers out of the southeast today, the storm will bring impactful weather in many forms. First, there is the snow, and snow may mix in with rain through the morning for areas such as the nation's capital, New York, and even into far southern Maine, before a chance of afternoon flurries. There can be some heavy snow squalls just off the Great Lakes, with snow showers for most interior sections in between. Another big story will be the wind, where widespread gusts over 30 miles per hour are expected from the Great Lakes region through Maine and southward through the Appalachian Mountains, even reaching the Outer Banks of North Carolina. Most other places in the nation will be dry today, with some showers reaching coastal Washington and perhaps some flurries over the Dakotas. In New Orleans, morning showers and thunderstorms may give way to some sun with a high of 66. For Las Vegas, expect sunshine and a high of 70. I'm AccuWeather.com meteorologist LaTroy Thornton.
I'm John Trout. Remember, you can follow us wherever you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, Amazon, YouTube. Just search America in the Morning in your favorite listening app. There may be a Republican trifecta in the Senate, House, and White House in 2025, but already there are clashes over President-elect Trump's legislative agenda. Pamela Furr has more.
GOP senators want to move pretty quickly on a budget reconciliation bill that focuses on the border and illegal immigration. This would include providing funding that would finish the construction on the U.S.-Mexico border wall and would increase the number of border protection agents. They all seem to be in agreement on also including legislation in the first budget bill that would boost domestic energy protection. But a proposal to convert a large chunk of discretionary defense spending into mandatory spending is causing some heartburn among lawmakers, specifically those on the Appropriations Committee. Incoming committee chair Susan Collins of Maine told The Hill, when you move spending from discretionary to mandatory, you circumvent the review the committee does. Senate Majority Leader John Thune told GOP senators this reconciliation package would be split into two parts. The first, with a goal to pass it in the first 30 days of the new Trump administration. House Speaker Mike Johnson is endorsing the two-step strategy, but says they're still working on what exactly would be included in each package. Now, you'll recall Republicans had problems delivering on their policy promises during Trump's first term, something they do not want to repeat this time. I'm Pamela Furr.
The Justice Department has released its findings in the death of Tyre Nichols and the Memphis Police force. Here's Correspondent Shelley Adler with the outcome.
The Memphis Police Department uses excessive force and discriminates against Black people. That's according to the findings of a DOJ investigation launched after the beating death of Tyre Nichols after a traffic stop in 2023. The report says that Memphis police officers regularly violate the rights of the people they are sworn to serve. The detailed account marked the conclusion of the investigation that began 6 months after Nichols was kicked, punched, and hit with a police baton as 5 officers tried to arrest him after he fled a traffic stop. I'm Shelley Adler.
Rates drop, mortgage apps rise. That's when America in the Morning continues after these messages. This is America in the Morning. The Business Report is brought to you by Fisher Investments. Fisher Investments is a fiduciary, always putting clients' interests first. Learn more at FisherInvestments.com. Let's find out how markets are expected to open today. Here's CNBC's Jessica Ettinger.
Wall Street opens this morning with the major averages, all 3 of them, opening at fresh record highs today. The Dow opens above 45,000 for the very first time. Companies whose shares hit records yesterday include Amazon, Walmart, Apple, Facebook parent Meta, and Netflix. Stock trading platform Robinhood, a favorite of young investors for its gamification of buying and selling stock on an app on your phone, it's considering a move into sports betting. Fewer jobs than expected were created in November in the new ADP private payroll report at 146,000.
What you're seeing is less energetic hiring in some places that had been really sound, like leisure and hospitality, only 15,000 jobs created. This was the stalwart of 23 and 22. It's now slower. Manufacturing, we saw a 26,000 job shed in manufacturing. This is a deeper decline than we've seen in past months, but this sector has been on the decline for the past 2 years. But overall, healthy number, still job gains.
That's ADP economist Neela Richardson on CNBC. We get the big government jobs report from the Labor Department tomorrow morning. HBO Max, now called Max, is the next streaming service eyeing a crackdown on password sharing. Subscribers will start getting gently worded emails next week. You'd think it'd be slow, but there was a surprising pickup in the number of people who applied for mortgages last week. Would-be homebuyers jumped.
Potential homebuyers are responding to the lowest mortgage rates in over a month, as well as higher supply of homes for sale. While the numbers are still really low, applications for a mortgage to buy a home jumped 6% last week compared with the previous week, and that was to the highest level since January of this year. That, according to the Mortgage Bankers Association's seasonally adjusted index. Now, the average rate on the 30-year fix for conforming loan balances dropped to 6.69%. That's for loans with 20% down.
CNBC's Diana Olick. The average rate on a 30-year fixed home loan now, it's jumped up a little, 6.8% as of yesterday, according to Mortgage News Daily. On today's watch list, we get a load of earnings from names like Petco, Ulta Beauty, Lululemon, Kroger, and Jack Daniels maker Brown-Forman. We also find out how many people applied for unemployment benefits last week. Tesla CEO Elon Musk meeting with Republican lawmakers on Capitol Hill today.
CNBC's Jessica Ettinger. When we return on America in the Morning, Trump lawsuit unraveling after these messages. Thanks for listening. You're with America in the Morning. There's a new push from the Trump camp to have the Georgia election interference case against him dismissed. Here's correspondent Mike Hempen.
President-elect Trump's attorneys have filed a notice with the Georgia Court of Appeals saying a sitting president is completely immune from indictment of any criminal process, state or federal. They say Georgia's courts won't have the jurisdiction over Trump once he becomes president next month. The filing asks the appeals court to consider before he becomes president whether it has jurisdiction to hear the case. It says the court should conclude that it and the trial court lack jurisdiction. The lawyers are asking the appeals court to dismiss the indictment against Trump. I'm Mike Hempen.
A turn towards a recovery mission as emergency crews in Pennsylvania try to figure out the best way to rescue a woman who may have fallen into a sinkhole. Correspondent Tyre Nichols reports.
That happened while she was searching for her lost cat above an old coal mine in Pennsylvania. They said that the crumbling mine was complicating efforts and was putting workers in danger. A state police spokesperson says the integrity of the mine has been compromised and rescuers are reassessing their tactics. But they don't plan to stop. Here's Steve Lamani with the Pennsylvania State Police.
This is a rescue to me until something says it's not. You know, I'm a person, and I know that every single person on this line, you know, until you're telling us there's no chance, there's a chance.
That audio is courtesy of WPXI. Police said they found 64-year-old Elizabeth Pollard's car parked near a restaurant. The manhole-size opening had not been seen by hunters and restaurant workers who were in the area hours before her disappearance. I'm Haya Panjwani.
America in the Morning for Thursday, December 5th, 2024 is produced by Jeff McKay. Senior producer Kevin Delaney. I'm John Trout. This is Westwood One. This is America in the Morning from Westwood One. I'm John Trout. Coming up this half hour.
The Supreme Court signals a reluctance to prevent states from banning gender-affirming procedures for minors. I'm John Stolness in Washington.
Pete Hegseth is fighting to keep his defense secretary nomination amid allegations of personal misconduct. Sagar Meghani, Washington.
An attempt to bar Montana's transgender state representative from using the women's bathroom in the state capitol has failed. I'm Sue Aller.
Senators grilled officials from 5 airlines over fees for seats and checked bags. Ed Donahue, Washington.
Prince Harry made some public comments about divorce speculation in the press. I'm Kevin Carr.
Congress debates junk fees. Plus, we'll look at proper pronunciations. Back after these messages. This is America in the Morning. Welcome back. Today's national forecast includes high wind advisories for portions of the east. Here's AccuWeather.com meteorologist LaTroy Thornton.
As a high-powered Alberta clipper continues to blast its way through the eastern half of the nation today, a powerful cold front associated with this storm will bring major changes to parts of the east through the day. For starters, snow may mix in with rain this morning near and along the I-95 corridor from Boston to Philadelphia before precipitation ends as some flurries by the afternoon. Farther inland, most of the precipitation falls as snow showers from Maine, south and west through central Pennsylvania and into the high terrain of West Virginia, with some heavier snow squalls downwind of Lakes Erie and Ontario. For storm total snow through Friday, there can be at least 1 to 3 inches of snow from eastern West Virginia through much of the northern half of Pennsylvania, all but southern parts of New England, just about all of upstate New York, and a large portion of Michigan, with the highest totals since Tuesday afternoon of 12 to 18 inches, expected for areas closest to the Great Lakes, such as Michigan, far western New York, and parts of the I-81 corridor just north of Syracuse. Elsewhere in the nation, many places from the mid-Atlantic due westward to California have a dry Thursday in store, with just some flurries over parts of the Dakotas and a few showers from the next storm trying to push on shore in the Pacific Northwest that will be driven mainly into Canada. Milder air spreads across much of the west as well today. However, another active zone will be the Gulf Coast region, where the very same cold front bringing that chillier air to support snow in the northeast will link up with a storm already in place over the south to produce some thunderstorms from southern Louisiana into south-central Alabama, with showers perhaps extending far east as coastal Georgia and as far west as coastal South Texas, perhaps even approaching the Big Bend. I'm AccuWeather.com meteorologist LaTroy Thornton.
Follow our show wherever you get your podcasts. Apple, Spotify, Amazon, and YouTube. Just search America in the Morning in your favorite listening app. I'm John Trout. Transgender rights. The Supreme Court heard arguments over whether Tennessee's state ban on certain gender-affirming care for minors was unconstitutional. John Stolness has the story from Washington.
The majority of the 9 justices appeared unmoved by the government's argument to overturn Tennessee's law that forbids the use of certain drugs to assist teens from transitioning from one sex to another. Justice Brett Kavanaugh pointed to multiple countries in Europe that he says are pulling back on allowing minors to use these drugs to change their gender.
It strikes me as pretty heavy yellow light, if not red light, for this court to come in, the 9 of us, and to constitutionalize the whole area when the rest of the world, or at least the people the countries that have been at the forefront of this, are pumping the brakes on this kind of treatment because of concerns about the risks.
However, Solicitor General Elizabeth Prelogar disputed that assertion and said these are potentially life-saving treatments.
The UK has not categorically banned this care. Sweden, Finland, and Norway, the other jurisdictions that my friends point to, have not banned this care. And I think that's because of the recognition that this care can provide critical, sometimes life-saving benefits for individuals with severe gender dysphoria.
The court will not rule on this case for another few months, but when they do, it could have ramifications for similar laws passed in 25 other states, including transgender rights regarding sports and the use of bathrooms and other facilities in schools. Justice Sonia Sotomayor pushed back on the state's claim that allowing voters at the state level to decide these issues was best, noting states have a history of passing laws discriminating against minorities.
When you're 1% of the population or less, very hard to see how the democratic process is going to protect you.
Well, Your Honor,
you blacks were a much larger part of the population, and it didn't protect them. It didn't protect women for whole centuries.
Justice Samuel Alito repeatedly questioned Chase Strangio, an ACLU lawyer for the Tennessee families challenging the ban, and the first openly transgender lawyer to argue in front of the Supreme Court, as to whether there are people who change their minds about their gender multiple times in their lives.
Are there not such people?
There are such people. I agree with that, Justice.
So it's not an immutable characteristic, is it?
Tennessee's law bans the use of puberty blockers and hormone treatments for transgender minors, but allows them to be used for other purposes, such as early onset puberty. John Stolness, Washington.
The Defense Secretary nomination of Pete Hegseth is under pressure amid misconduct allegations as he spent the day on Capitol Hill meeting with senators who will decide his fate. As Washington correspondent Sagar Meghani reports, President-elect Donald Trump is reported to be looking at alternatives as the former Fox News host's nomination hangs in the balance.
What I've talked to him about, what I've read, what I've studied, and been around him, I'll vote for him.
I'm going to let the process work itself out. I've known Pete for a number of years, and so I haven't had a chance to talk to him since he was nominated, but we'll let the process work itself out.
Some of these articles are very disturbing. He, obviously has a chance to defend himself here, but some of this stuff is going to be difficult. Time will tell. I like Pete. I've known him for a very, very long time.
Pete Hegseth is fighting to keep his defense secretary nomination amid allegations of personal misconduct.
We're not backing down one bit.
Hegseth says he did pay a woman who accused him of sexual assault, but flat denies assaulting her. As for claims he's been drunk on the job.
I've never had a drinking problem.
On Sirius XM's The Megyn Kelly Show, Hegseth says President-elect Trump offered support in a call today.
He supports me. We talked. I won't betray what we talked about specifically, but he said, you go meet those senators and I've got your back. It means a lot to me.
And as he's met with senators,
I owe an answer to the members of the United States Senate who are going to vote for a confirmation here. And my meetings with them have been fantastic. No one has looked me in the eye and say, I have concerns and I can't vote for you. In fact, most have said, let's take a picture and I'm behind you all the way.
Still, Trump's team is worried about Hegseth's path to confirmation and is looking at alternatives, including Florida Governor Ron DeSantis.
I need to make sure the senators and the troops and President Trump and everybody else knows when you call me 24/7, you're getting fully dialed in, Pete, just like you always did in Iraq and Afghanistan. So this is the biggest deployment of my life, and there won't be a drop of alcohol on my lips while I'm doing it.
Sagar Meghani, Washington.
In the last outstanding U.S. House race, a Democrat wins by a razor-thin recount margin. As correspondent Jennifer King reports, this also leaves House Republicans with a very narrow majority as they get set to hold leadership of both sides of Congress and the White House.
Election officials in California say all the ballots have been counted and the last regular season U.S. House election in the country has been decided. Democrat Adam Gray unseats Republican John Duarte in California's Central Valley Farm Belt by a margin of less than 200 votes. Gray's win means Democrats hold 215 House seats this election cycle, while Republicans hold a majority of 220 seats. It also means California picked up 3 GOP House seats in a tough year for Democrats nationally. Duarte told the Turlock Journal he had called Gray to concede. Gray, a former member of the state assembly, posted that he plans to put water, education, infrastructure, and jobs at the top of his priority list. Meanwhile, Florida has scheduled a special election to fill congressional vacancies left by Representatives Matt Gaetz and Mike Waltz, with a primary January 28th and a special general election April 1st. Candidates have until noon this Friday to register. Several candidates for Gaetz' Pensacola area District 1 seat have already dropped out to support Republican Jimmy Patronis, who's resigned as Florida's chief financial officer and has the endorsement of President-elect Donald Trump. Trump also endorsed Florida State Senator Randy Fine in the race for Waltz's Daytona Beach district. Jennifer King, Washington.
When our program continues, airline passengers frustrated over junk fees. Plus, Biden returns from trip abroad. Those stories and more when America in the Morning continues after these messages. I'm John Trout. Welcome back. This is America in the Morning. A measure to bar Montana's first transgender legislator from using women's restrooms in the state capitol building failed to pass a state house committee after a handful of Republicans balked at its passage. Sue Adler has more.
Democrats were united, Republicans were split. But in the end, a measure to ban Zoe Zephyr, Montana's first openly transgender legislator, from using the women's bathroom failed. In a 10-12 vote in the Joint Rules Committee, members of the House voted narrowly against prohibiting transgender women from using the women's restrooms between the House and Senate chambers at the state capitol. Republican State Representative David Beatty says this issue is a distraction.
This particular action will have the effect of making people famous in the national news and will not contribute to the effective conduct of our business.
Republican Representative Jedidiah Hinkle said not everyone is on board with the ruling.
I know multiple legislators, women, who would not use that bathroom. They would go all the way across the Capitol building down to the bullpen to use that bathroom rather than using the one right outside the House and Senate chambers.
The audio is courtesy of Montana's Public Affairs Network. This decision comes as Sarah McBride of Delaware is set to become the first openly transgender member of Congress in American history, and just weeks after House Republican leadership on Capitol Hill have stated their intent to bar transgender women from using women's restrooms. I'm Sue Adler.
Airlines that are charging for everything from baggage and seat selection to when you board your plane aren't just frustrating passengers. Correspondent Ed Donahue reports airlines are being called out on so-called junk fees in Congress.
Senators grilled officials from 5 airlines over fees for seats and checked bags. Airline executives like United's Andrew Nocella bristle at the term junk fees.
Our customers who prioritize affordability have the option to choose a lower fare product and in doing so, opt out of paying for additional services they do not need nor want.
But New Hampshire Democrat Maggie Hassan wants to see more transparency.
We're all captives on your airplanes at a certain point. And you just say, you want to pick a seat, we're just going to charge you some random amount more.
Missouri Republican Josh Hawley pointed out Frontier and Spirit Airlines paid bonuses to workers who spotted customers with bigger than allowed carry-on bags.
Your airlines are paying millions of dollars to your employees to harass people who've already paid.
The fees don't seem to be hurting business. Americans are flying more than ever. Ed Donahue, Washington.
President Joe Biden is heading back to Washington following his trip to the African nation of Angola, a first for a sitting president, where he promoted a major U.S.-backed rail project. Correspondent Charles de Ledesma reports.
President Joe Biden is finding ways to celebrate trains in the waning days of his presidency, thousands of miles from home.
Africa has been left behind for much too long beyond that. But not anymore. Africa is the future.
Biden's using his final day in Angola to tout the Lobito Corridor Railway, where the US and key allies are investing heavily to refurbish 800 miles of train lines in Zambia, Congo and Angola. The project aims to advance the US presence in a region rich in cobalt, copper and other critical minerals, using batteries for electric vehicles, electronic devices and clean energy technologies.
We're not just laying tracks, we're laying the groundwork for a better future for our people, ordinary people. People that's going to create jobs, it's going to create good paying jobs for people. It's going to put them in a position where they can have the benefits people around the world have without having to long for them and actually get them.
Biden, the first US president to visit Angola, said it during a speech on Tuesday evening, "I'm probably the most pro-rail guy in America." I'm Charles de Ledesma.
The FTC has issued a ruling against advertising companies that buy your mobile tracking data and then sell it to the highest bidder. Here's Chuck Palm with that in today's Tech News.
The FTC is banning data brokers from using, selling, or collecting sensitive location data of Americans. Two particular companies, Gravy Analytics and Mobilewalla, have allegedly been violating the FTC Act by collecting and selling information that could be used to track people when they visit military bases, religious sites, labor union gatherings, or other sensitive locations. The FTC says that Mobilewalla relied primarily on consumer information that they collected from real-time bidding exchanges. Companies can buy your tracking information and place them for bid on a market where personalized ads can be delivered to your mobile devices. Gravy Analytics subsidiary Venatel has been collecting and selling your private mobility data to large companies, advertising businesses, and even government agencies. 404 Media reports that the IRS, DEA, FBI, CBP, and ICE have all purchased Venatel data. For more privacy-related stories, follow me on X at Chuck Palm.
Here's a Thursday look at sports with America in the Morning's Robert Workman.
3 top 5 teams tumbled in college basketball last night. Creighton handed number 1 Kansas its first loss of the season, 76-63 in the Big East Big 12 battle in Omaha. Pop Isaacs led the way with a season-high 27 points for the Blue Jays. Number 2, Auburn fell to number 9 Duke in the SEC ACC Challenge, 84-78. Cooper Flagg led the Blue Devils with 22 points. And number 6 Iowa State took down number 5 Marquette, 81-70. NBA, the Celtics won for the 9th time in 10 games, beating the Pistons 131-20. Hawks stopped the Bucks. Atlanta has won 5 in a row, but that ends Milwaukee's 7-game run. Nets down the Pacers. Both teams came in on 3-game losing streaks. Magic tripped the Sixers. Franz Wagner pumped in 35. Timberwolves trampled the Clippers, and the Heat clobbered the Lakers. LA has now lost its last 2 games by a combined 70 points. Coach J.J. Redick.
Not sure what was lost in translation. There has to be some ownership on the court, and I'll take all the ownership in the world. This is my team, and I lead it, and I'm embarrassed.
Hockey wins for the Maple Leafs, Bruins, Golden Knights, and Kings. That's Thursday Sports.
Thank you, Robert. When America in the Morning returns, the most mispronounced names. After these messages. Welcome back. You're with America in the Morning. A better-than-expected charity day when it comes to Giving Tuesday donations. Correspondent Shelley Adler reports.
According to estimates from the nonprofit Giving Tuesday, donors in this country gave $3.6 billion. That's an increase from the past 2 years. Breaking down the numbers, 18.5 million people donated to nonprofits and another 9.2 million people volunteered. Both the number of donors and the number of volunteers increased by 4% from last year. The Tuesday after Thanksgiving, now known as Giving Tuesday, has become a major day for nonprofits nonprofits to fundraise and otherwise engage their supporters each year since the 92nd Street Y in New York started it as a hashtag in 2012. I'm Shelley Adler.
Prince Harry in New York, where he talked about a number of topics, including alleged marital strife with the Duchess of Sussex. Kevin Carr reports.
On Wednesday, the Duke was in New York City for the Deal Book Summit, where he sat down with Andrew Ross Sorkin to discuss a variety of topics. Sorkin asked the Duke about rumors of divorce and separation.
Meghan is in California right now, and you're here, and there's articles left and right about, why are you doing independent events? Why are you doing them together?
Because you invited me, you should have known.
Harry responded further, dismissing it as media speculation.
Apparently we've bought or moved house maybe 10, 12 times. We've apparently divorced maybe 10, 12 times as well. So it's just like, what?
Prince Harry has been openly and consistently critical of the media and how it reports on the royal family. His brother Prince William faced similar rumors last year when Princess Kate was not seen publicly for months. After weeks of media speculation, the princess announced her cancer diagnosis. Clearly, the speculative press can be quite wrong. Prince Harry went on to say events in his life are often spun to fit a preconceived narrative.
I have no doubt that everything that we've spoken about in the last, the clock's on zero, 25 minutes, will be spun or twisted somehow against me, and maybe you.
Other topics covered in the Deal Book Summit included the Duke's life with the royal family, the fight for mental health awareness, the dangers of social media, the need for free speech, and his philanthropical efforts. I'm Kevin Carr.
Another December day, another year-end list. Correspondent Margie Zaraletta has the most mispronounced names of 2024.
The singer of Good Luck Babe, it's Chapel Roan. The language learning company Babbel and closed captioning company The Captioning Group say it's one of the names that news anchors, politicians, and other public figures got wrong a lot this year. The star of the movie Saltburn is Barry Keoghan, spelled Keoghan. The star of the movie Challengers, it's not Zendaya, but Zendaya. Other frequently mispronounced names include semaglutide, the drug in the weight loss medications Ozempic and Wegovy, fast fashion giant Shein, Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg, and Vice President Kamala Harris. I'm Margie Zaraletta.
America in the Morning for Thursday, December 5th, 2024 is produced by Jeff McKay. Senior producer Kevin Delaney. I'm John Trout. This is Westwood One.